but I'm asking you if you agree with
more.
her. If you agree with her that it's right to take a more cautious approach to getting rid of all these EU laws, or whether you agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg and his ilk that it's wrong and a mistake and not doing Brexit.
Very simple. I support. Very, very simple. Let me simplify. I support her entirely because she will be in possession of all of those facts as things stand today, rather than me commenting on as things were 6 months ago.
So. Well, let's get to it then, shall we? Because Grant Shapps is the Energy Secretary, and with our focus on housing today, he still holds the title of the longest-serving housing minister in the modern Conservative era, passing that 2-year mark. Grant Shapps, welcome to Sunday Morning.
Morning.
Well, as I said there, you are the longest-serving housing secretary in the Conservative government, but at 2 years, it's not a particularly long tenure. Do you think that has something to do with the fact that potentially your government hasn't been as focused on housing as it needs to be?
Yeah, I think I actually did longer than 2 years. I think it was because I was in from the May election through September 2012, so a bit over. But look, I actually, this government has been making quite a bit of progress on housing. I haven't got the numbers right in front of me, but I think I'm right in saying that we built more homes of late than certainly was the case when I was housing minister, coming in off the back of the previous Blair-Brown government. So I think there has been progress made, albeit that there is much further to go, of course.
Well, you actually did miss your housing target in the most recent update on those figures. And I have to ask you, does that housing target still exist?
Yeah, we still want to build 300,000 a year, and I think I am right in saying, you may have the actual number there, that we have been building more than has historically been the case over the previous 10 or 15 years, for sure. And look, housing is a complicated thing. I know this because as housing minister, it's a small country, essentially, physically, geographically. We have limitations, and we have therefore high house prices. There are also lots of problems with the planning system, which we wrestle with to try to speed up the process. I don't like the fact that so many planning permissions are granted and then the houses don't seem to get built. That in itself could build an entire year's worth of housing supply, for example. So there are a lot of issues to deal with when it comes to housing, and it's not as straightforward as people perhaps make out on occasion. There is no magic wand solution. We have to do lots of different things to fix this.
No, I think most people would understand that. There are lots of different elements to this argument, but a big one of them is political will. And actually, it's your own MPs who are preventing the party from going further. Robert Jenrick, for example, former housing secretary, did suggest some pretty sweeping planning reforms and reforms to the way homes were built, and those can't happen. One of your own MPs, Theresa Villiers, in an interview in the Sunday Times today, has warned that although she thinks that we do need to build houses, she doesn't want them in her particular area. It's your own MPs who are the problem here.
Well, what happens is you have a green belt set up. The whole idea is to stop different parts of either the capital expanding out into other areas or indeed other towns and cities expanding, so that you end up having one continuous urban conurbation. So there's a point to the green belt. Now, quite where that adjustment should be, where greenbelt should be not built on, is a perfectly legitimate debate, and I would expect my colleagues to have views on it. They are, after all, representing their constituents.
Yeah, but forgive me. Theresa Villiers isn't talking about the green belt. It's a bit of a sort of misdirection, if you like, to bring that into it. What she was talking about was building on top of existing property. She doesn't want that to happen either. Robert Jenrick, who I mentioned, he's been fairly robust on this. He says the government is letting down hundreds of thousands of people. This week he reaffirmed that belief. He also hinted it could be your downfall at the next general election. Do you agree?
I think it's really important that people know that we have an ambition to build 300,000 homes, and we've been doing better than we've done in the past, and past governments have done in recent history as well. But I don't want to underplay the complexities. In my own constituency, in Hertfordshire, in Welwyn Hatfield, we have been one of the most, if you like, pro-house building. We built more homes, thousands of homes, during my time as the MP there. But I also recognise that there are limits to, do we really want to join up the two towns in my constituency, Hatfield and Welwyn Garden City? These are perfectly legitimate debates,
yeah.
And I think it's quite right. I don't agree with this idea that MPs who stand up for their constituents are somehow automatically on the wrong side of this argument. I think what we have to do as a country is work out all the many different ways that we can create more housing, fill-in plots, for example,
Yeah.
what happened actually
Okay.
under Boris
Well,
in London, where he had a very good housing record.
Let's talk about a building of a slightly different kind. How many onshore wind turbines are being built in the UK right now?
So I know the answer you're going to give me is there are two, but actually not turbines, that's actually wind farms. And I know that there are many applications to build more. We've got an auction round going on at the moment, for example. And we already have about, I think, 14 gigawatts of onshore wind. That's enough to supply millions of homes, and that's the onshore ones. Offshore, we lead the world. We have the world's largest offshore wind, the second largest, the third largest, and we're building the fourth.
Onshore, actually the answer I'm going to give you is one. There is one wind turbine being built currently in Bristol. There are 4 more which have been given planning permission. Germany built 500 last year. Why are we lagging behind?
Just to be clear, it's not one turbine. We're talking about wind farms here, so there'll be a series of turbines. I think I'm right in saying. And the second thing to say is, we already built a lot of onshore wind. We outpaced Germany when it comes to renewables. Something like 57% of our electricity in the last 12 months.
So you think we're doing enough?
Renewables and nuclear. Well, no, we always want to do more. The point I'm making is we are way ahead of the country that you're citing when it comes to renewable power. Way ahead. I'll give you another example in solar power. Despite being half the size of France and not having quite as nice climate as they've got in France, we have as much solar power as France has, as much as Spain. We actually do very well.
Can I just stop you because
which is running down our very good record.
Germany built 500 last year. We built 2, and that's turbines, not wind farms. We built 2 turbines last year. Are you saying that you genuinely believe that that's good enough?
I'm saying that we already have about, I think, 14 gigawatts.
They were built in 2016. There's not been hardly any built since then onshore. 2 last year, 2 turbines, not wind farms, 2 turbines.
I was going to say, I hear what you're saying, but wind in total, and in particular including offshore, where we have another 14 gigawatts, there is no country in the world apart from China who have more, and we have all the biggest ones. So, we are fortunate. We have very, very windy North Sea, and we're an island, and so we're able to have this mix, which includes onshore and offshore and solar, and we're doing it better than any other country in Europe.
I mean, look, I've just spoken to you about house building. We're not building enough homes in this country. You've missed your target. We're not building enough wind turbines. I mean, if you think, maybe you think
you're choosing a very specific type of wind
Well,
turbines.
I'm asking you about onshore because that has been stalled, and the government promised last year to, unleash the power of onshore wind. That hasn't happened. We're not building HS2 in full. Northern Powerhouse Rail has been scaled back. Have we lost our way a bit as a country? We don't seem to be able to build anything anymore.
No, I completely disagree. I think actually when I was just at the G7 energy ministers in Japan, and they are all looking to Britain at our example on renewables. You haven't, for example, mentioned that just 10 or 11 years ago, 40% of our electricity came from the dirtiest hydrocarbon of all, coal. This year, it will probably be 0. We've done that because we built renewable power, and I don't care whether it's onshore or offshore or solar or what we do. The fact is, no country, no industrialised nation has decarbonised faster and built more renewables. But here you are saying we can't get anything built. It's just not true. The facts actually point to exactly the opposite being the case.
Well, I mean, your MPs are certainly divided on whether that is the case. A lot of them, particularly in the red wall seats, would not agree with you there. I have to ask you, I mean, you made some comments about Kemi Badenoch this week. It seems there's not just division in the party, but division in the cabinet too. You feel that she's let the side down by not pushing to get rid of all EU laws?
Just to be clear, if I made those comments, it must have been whilst I was sleeping.
So you didn't make those comments?
Open newspapers and no. I think what this has been conflated on is I had said that when I was business secretary, with the laws that we knew about at that time, we were on track. These are the EU laws that need to be taken off the statute, but we're on track to get them off. But what's happened actually is the British Library and others have been going through and unearthing more laws. So we will now have about 2,000 scrapped, over 2,000 scrapped by the end of this year. Yes, there will be some more to do, but I think it's just those two comments becoming conflated.
Well, let's be clear. Do you think that she was wrong and that they should have gone ahead with sunsetting all EU laws?
So she will be much closer to the detail now.
No. But that's a point of principle.
When I was there. Yeah.
Are you saying?
Look,
I mean, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg say we should just get rid of the lot. That's part of taking back control. Are you saying that you agree with him, or you agree with Kemi Badenoch?
Yeah, look, Kemi will be in possession of all the facts as things stand now, and she just this week laid what's called a statutory instrument in the House of Lords to.
Yeah, but but I'm asking you if you agree with her.
More.
If you agree with her that it's right to take a more cautious approach to getting rid of all these EU laws, or whether you agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg and his ilk that it's wrong and a mistake and not doing Brexit.
Very simple. I support. Very, very simple. Let me simplify. I support her entirely because she will be in possession of all of those facts as things stand today, rather than me commenting on as things were 6 months ago. So no, she'll have all those facts. She has decided the way to do it is like this. Actually, 2,000 of these laws are being scrapped this year, or will have been scrapped by the end of the year, which actually is pretty good going. I think the complication is that more are being discovered which have laid in many cases dormant on the statute book, which of course we want to get rid of as well, but it's only a question of pacing this through.
Yeah, but I mean, the truth of the matter, anyone looking in on this would say, here we are, general election approaching, Conservatives been in power for 13 years, and they're all squabbling amongst themselves. They still haven't got a consistent plan, and they're squabbling amongst themselves because of their own personal ambitions, including your own.
I just don't buy that at all. I think we are actually, fizzing, bubbling with ideas, policy
with backstabbing
areas as well. I think we're energetic as ever, and I think actually on the Prime Minister's 5 big pledges to halve inflation and grow the economy and reduce the debt overall and get the NHS waiting lists under control and stop the boats. Those are the 5 things that will be measured on. Those are the 5 things which are difficult things to do, but we are still on track to deliver before the election, and that is where we'll be measured. I think the rest of it is sort of the daily stuff. You open the newspapers, and I was as surprised as anyone else.
It's not the newspapers holding the conferences at the weekend or another conference next week, is it?
Well, what do those? I take a different view, Adam. I think those conferences demonstrate that we're still fizzing with ideas, that people are getting together, they're thinking about policies, and it's not unusual in a political party to have some people say, hey, would this be a good idea, and another bunch to say, actually, I don't agree, we should do this. That is the very essence. I was just reselected as a candidate for Welland Hatfield, and my association, constituency association, rightly wanted to hear my ideas and also gave me their ideas. And I don't have to agree with every single one to still be in the same party, right?
Unfortunately, some of their ideas are to get rid of your current leader. But I want to move on because we haven't got really very much time left. RCN boss Pat Cullen today saying she's now seeking a double-digit pay rise again. What are your thoughts on how possible that's going to be for the government to engage with?
So we've got a deal on the table that Pat Cullen herself was encouraging her members to accept that would give nurses this year £5,000 in their pay packets. Pat Cullen was in favour of it, was encouraging people. I think it's extraordinary to come back and then say, oh no, don't accept that. We need to get this settled. £5,000 plus more for people at the lower end of the pay scale, and of course in the NHS there's something like 20% contribution from the employer to those very hard-working nurses for their pensions as well. I think it's very important that we get this settled and do so in a way which doesn't in itself create yet more inflation in the economy. So I'm very surprised to hear Pat going back on what she has previously said, and I hope we can get some common sense in here.
So no wriggle room there?
Well, look, this, as I say, is an issue that's already, everyone thought,
it's
been settled and had gone to a vote, and 1 million NHS workers were due to get £5,000 more. And I think it'd be a very good thing if we could get that money to them as quickly as possible.
Finally, Adam hates this, but I loved it. Eurovision last night. I want to ask you particularly whether you watched it, because I understand, I mean, you took in a Ukrainian refugee family, obviously previously. Did you watch it? Did you have a party? What did you do to celebrate?
No, well, the family actually left us a couple of weeks ago. They've moved on to their own accommodation now after a year. So I wasn't watching it with them, and actually in truth we watched the results, but then I eventually decided I needed to turn in because I had a series of these interviews starting very early this morning. I was disappointed for the UK, but never mind, more like next year.
Yeah, there's always next year. Grant Shapps, thank you very much for giving us your time this Sunday morning. We appreciate it.